Hey everyone, in our last video we met Ahmet's challenge to make coffee in a roasting pan so you could easily do that at home. But in this video we're going to take that coffee and actually taste it and see how it turned out. Alright, so here's our coffee. This is a coffee that we got from Addis Exporters, and this is the Green Spring Sonkolle Natural Guji Grade 1 from the 2020 and 2021 crop. Yes, there it is. And so it's a really nice looking coffee in its green state. I thought it's really nice looking. And this is actually going to be the very first time that I've actually roasted and sampled it. The guys from Addis, my apology. I know you gave this to me quite a while back, but sometimes life gets in the way. Anyway, so here we are. We've got our coffee, and as you can see, this is the Guji. So here's some of the problems with it. When I weighed it out, if you recall from the last video, we did this roast in about 6 minutes, 17 seconds, which in the world of coffee roasting is really, really fast. So there was a lot of heat in the pan, and the coffee roasting went really, really quickly, which means that we're getting a lot of moisture loss. And so this one, we had about 20% moisture loss. So when we started out with 50 grams of green coffee, we ended up with 40 grams of roasted coffee. For the home user, it's not that big a deal, but when you're a commercial roaster, that percentage loss is a big concern. And that's all partially because, you're typically looking at 16% loss. Now we're talking a 4% greater loss. Means that your cost is increased by that much, and your margin is decreasing by that much as well. So I was thinking about this roast last night, and I was thinking, we could have really gone slower. Like if I was to do this again, I would try to go with lesser application of heat, because the high heat that we're using really just drives it faster. And so what we'd like to see is the roast at least 9 minutes. Somewhere 9 to 12, I think, is going to be the ideal range to get this coloration. But anyway, so that's one thing to think about as you're progressing with pan roasting coffee at home. Try to go with a little bit less application of heat and try to extend your roast, or try to find the sweet spot of heat to the pan and roasting so that you get the best results you're going to have. Yeah. All right. So now what we're going to do is we're going to weigh out some coffee, grind it up, and then taste it and see how it turned out. Okay, we're back, and we put a bit of a coarse grind to it because we're going to use this Rattlewear cupping brewer. And what this is, it's a brewing device that was designed to give the similar results to an actual coffee cupping while allowing you to share that coffee with other people and drink from it. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the Rattlewear. It comes with a plunger, and it's pretty simple. We're just going to add the coffee to it. We're using 24 grams of coffee because we're going to make a 12-ounce cup. All right, we've got our timer here, so we're going to count upwards with the timer. We're just going to bring our water and pour it all in one go. So what I'm doing is I'm adding water, 350 milliliters of water, to the coffee so that it can brew correctly. I guess that's the best way to put it. Nice warm tones, kind of earthy. We're going to wait 4 minutes for this to steep, and then we're going to break the crust much as we would during a cupping. And we're just going to wait. All right, now we've got 4 minutes. So let's look at it. The crust is looking pretty solid, and now we're going to break that crust down. There's some fruitier tones that are coming out. Not bad. Although there is a little bit of darkness to it, so some of it seems like it could be a little bit overbrewed, which is to be expected. We're just getting rid of any kind of floating coffee grounds. Now, in order to decant with the cupping brewers, it comes with this black plunger, this little rubber plunger. And here we're at the waist of the glass. This is where you're going to set the plunger, and that's going to keep all of the coffee that's fallen into the bottom from recirculating into the liquid that you're going to drink. So we're just going to gently push that down. Now, another thing to bear in mind is that while you feel tempted to one-hand it, that's usually fraught with destruction and damnation. So you don't want to do that. You really want to use both hands, because the reality is that that wedge-shaped rubber filter doesn't really fit fully into the waist of the glass. So you get a mess if you don't do it. So hold it there with two hands and then just pour it out. There's still going to be quite an amount of water or coffee inside the lower part of the vessel, but that can't be helped. All right, let's have a smell. Nice kind of earthy, warm tones to it. Since this is my first time roasting with this coffee, I really don't know what it's supposed to taste like. So it'll be difficult to judge whether or not I have achieved anything worthwhile for the flavor of the coffee. Typically, when we're doing coffees, we'll actually put these in a sample roaster, which is a miniature roaster that you can do small quantities with. That is a much more temperature-controlled environment. It typically will give you much more even roasting results. As you recall, with our beans, these are very uneven in color. As you can see, there's some that are really on the City Plus, and then down to lighter medium, more of a cinnamon roast. So you're going to have a lot of variation with that. That's really because in the pan roasting method, you're not getting constant circulation and constant even application of heat to all sides of the beans. Whereas in a drum roaster or even air roaster, because the drum is either causing a constant cascade against the drum and through the convective air, or even in the case of an air popper or air roaster, it's blowing convective air through the coffee, so the coffee's always rolling. We're not getting that result in the pan roasting, so there's going to be inherent unevenness to the coffee. All right, so let's pour it out. Let's not give any further ado. Coffee's pretty hot. We're still about 8 minutes, almost 9 minutes since we started brewing, which means the coffee's pretty hot. A lot of times when you're tasting coffees critically with a cupping situation, you're going to wait about 10 minutes to start drinking the coffee or tasting the coffee so that you've allowed the heat to dissipate. Also, another thing to bear in mind is that this is now 24 hours after we roasted it. You really want to taste coffees within that first 24-hour period. A lot of roasters will roast and then cup their samples of their roast the next day within that 24-hour period, because basically they just don't want to take the time during the day of production to do it. You could drink the coffee straight out of the pan or out of the roaster, and that'll be fine. But once you get past about 24 hours, the byproduct of roasting is CO2 emittance from the beans, which occludes your ability to taste the flavors, right? It kind of dampens the flavors, kind of protects the flavors for about 5 to 7 days, and then it opens up, and then you really get the flavor of the coffee. So during that dormancy period, you don't really want to be tasting the coffee, or you could drink the coffee, you'll just won't have the full expression of the coffee. So it's really kind of up to you. In this case, we want to do it at the latest the day after, because we just want to be able to taste what we can taste and see how it goes. All right, let's get into it. I mean, here's the thing where you can really start to taste the inconsistency of the roast. There's some brightness from the lighter roast. There's some heaviness, bitterness from the darker roasted stuff. There's not as much, it's kind of thin, mainly because I believe that's because, we only had a 6-minute roast. We went really, really fast, so there's really no development. The sweetness is very diminished because we're not really developing the sweetness. Yeah, so that's initial reaction. And so this is a great example of where the skill of the roasting comes into play. The coffee green looks very clean, looks really nice, but because of that green, you'd expect some more impressive results, where this one, the result isn't so impressive. And I think it's really because of the way that it was roasted. It's still better than a lot of what you get at diner coffee, but there's so much more that could come out of it, I think. I think there's done with a little more care, a little more time, a slower roast profiling. And I don't mean necessarily that you have to put it into an actual roaster. I think if you manage the pan roasting better than I did, slower, a little more meticulous, then I think your results will be much, much better. And you can, I think, with enough control of the heat and enough rotation of the coffee, I think you could probably get some really good results. This one, too fast. Here's the basic thing, is that when you use quality coffee, like a quality ingredient, so we're starting with a very good quality green, you really have to try very, very hard to make it unpleasant. Like, this is not unpleasant, it's pleasant enough. It's not fully what it could be. You can kind of taste it. You can see, you can taste the variations in the roasting and a little bit of the problems with the roasting, but it's not a bad coffee. It's a good coffee. It's just not very well roasted. Which means you shouldn't use that as a judge for what we sell at SproCoffee.com. If you do need coffee, check it out, let me know. Place an order. If not, no big deal. You know, and all that kind of stuff. We're not really pushing things like that too hard. Actually, that's getting better. So if there's some improvement in the flavor as it's been cooling for these last few minutes, a little bit more sweetness is coming out of it, a little more complexity. But initially there was definitely some bitter tones, some bright tones that were kind of clashing because of the variations in the roast profile. But now that the heat is subsiding, it's getting more pleasant, actually. All right, so let me know what you think about this. If you have any questions about the roasting or how to do this better or anything like that, put those in the comments below. If you have any challenges, put those in the comments below. All right, see you next time. Yeah, if you have any questions, just tell me. Tell me. Happy to answer.